Welcome to the High Vibe Moms Club, the podcast for ambitious women ready to ditch burnout, diet culture, and mom guilt so they can feel hot, healthy, and radiant from the inside out. I'm your host, Shannon, and this isn't just another wellness podcast. It's a movement. If you're ready to raise your vibe, reset your health, and step into your most confident self, you're in the right place. Welcome back to the High Vibe Moms Club. Today I am joined by Faith, the founder of That Healing Feeling, who helps women break free from chronic symptoms by retraining the nervous system and subconscious patterns. After spending nearly a decade bedridden with Graves' disease, IBS, and POTS, Faith was able to reverse her symptoms, not by adding more protocols, by addressing the brain-body connection at a deeper level. And we're diving into why so many high-achieving mamas feel stuck despite doing everything right and what it actually takes to reset your nervous system and feel like yourself again. Faith, I am so excited to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for that. And yes, I'm excited to be here as well.
Yay! So today I want to start with your story. And for those listeners that are like, what's Graves' disease? What's POTS? What's going on? Can you explain what exactly this is and how this affected you, all the things?
Yes. So like where do I start? So I'll try to make it short and sweet then. I was first diagnosed in 2012 with Graves' disease, which is an autoimmune disease. And at the time I was in college in Texas, where I'm from. And this is sort of like the start of what ended up being this really long journey. Well, I was sick for quite a few years before then, but I think as a lot of us, and we'll probably talk about this, like it's kind of a slow burner, and then finally you just like hit that breaking point where it will be some sort of chronic illness or autoimmune disease. So for me, I was sick for a few years. It took a while to get a diagnosis. And then from there, I had to take a year off school, went back, was heavily medicated, probably took around like 12 different pills to get through the day.
God.
Yeah, it was rough. And eventually by 2018, I became bedridden. And, I was working in corporate America. I was very typical, like type A overachiever. But at the same time, my body was really like, no, you need to rest. And that was in and of itself really challenging. And at that time, I had to leave my job. And I was then given these other diagnoses of POTS and IBS. So, kind of all the gut issues and POTS really affecting a nervous system issue. And so, like, for example, it's affecting your heart rate and blood pressure. And if you are standing up, you're blacking out or passing out. And I was kind of all over the shop. Yeah, it was not nice. And then I had, unexplained symptoms like chronic UTI, cystic acne, really bad anxiety, and they just couldn't figure out why I had these issues. And so that's what started me down this road of initially functional medicine and holistic medicine when Western medicine said, I don't have a solution for you. And I thought that I'd sort of hit nirvana by getting into the world of like detoxing and all of that. However, it didn't really get me to where I wanted to be. And I still wasn't able to go back to work. I still had a ton of food fear. I still had a lot of the same issues. I couldn't work out, like any of those things. And so that's when I went into like the mind body world. And I have a background in behavioral psychology, my educational background, and I just started getting certified in other modalities that were slightly less tangible than my degree because I had a heavy focus on neuroscience, whereas there's not a lot of research on the kind of work that I do, unfortunately. And so even when I was studying, this wasn't something that we were really talking about. And there was no connection in my studies between like the mind and body as it relates to chronic illness. There's a little bit now, but not really. And so I started to dive into that. And that's when I realized that chronic illness is very unique in how it behaves. And I was able to reverse everything within 9 months. And so that's why I started this business to teach what I learned and ultimately did myself.
9 months after a decade. That is wild.
Mm.
I can only imagine. I know with myself, I've had like the postnasal drip and acid reflux and all the things. And again, they're just like, here, take these proton inhibitors, take this medicine, but they never wanted to address the root cause, like what was actually causing all this reflux. So, not as extensive as your situation, but it's frustrating when you have to
Mm.
live with chronic symptoms and they're just throwing like band-aids at you essentially, like, oh, this will be fine.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you said you finally were able to reverse those symptoms, what exactly does that look like? Was it some protocols? Was it supplements? What kind of things did you do? You talked about the mind-body connection. Was it a series of things or was it one thing that you're like, this worked best for me?
It's kind of a difficult question to answer because it's definitely, when you're looking at healing a chronic condition from the mind body perspective, you're looking at changing the brain. And in order to
Mhm.
change the brain, it's kind of like when you're working out. Like, a trainer would never say, oh, go to, if you want abs, go once a month or once a week and do this workout and you're going to get abs. It's not how it works. You have to be consistent. It's better to, do a shorter session, be consistent, slowly build up, and that's where you're going to see change. And that's how the brain is. It doesn't behave any differently than that. And so it is about consistency. It feels really hard at first. I say this to my students, some are moms, some are not, but I'm like, that feeling where you have had a baby and then you go in and you can finally do like an ab workout and you're like, oh my God, I am so weak. Like, you used to have all this core strength and it just, you build it back, but it's humbling. And,
Yes.
it's not fun at first because you're like, I feel like I'm starting from zero. And then now, it's been X amount of time and you're like, oh, this is great. I'm like doing all these things in reformer or with my weights and I feel really strong. So that's kind of how this feels. You start and you're like, wow, this feels really uncomfortable and like not natural and I don't feel good at this. And then in time, just like if you're consistent at the gym, it becomes easier to think differently. It becomes
Mm,
easier to interpret things differently. And ultimately, that ease is what sends signals to the nervous system that you're safe, and that's how you start to heal. And so it definitely is something that requires the same level of dedication that being consistent at the gym would require. And I think that there's so many reasons why people don't do the work, but the information is out there. I think the biggest reason is they don't believe. But I think
mm,
second of all, they don't believe it could actually work for them. And second of all, it's the discipline. It's hard, not the work itself. It's not hard like a workout at all, but the discipline of actually doing that consistently is hard. And but the work itself is easy, but the discipline is hard. So, and the hardest part of it all is believing because
mhm,
you have to do something for so long before you see results, just like a workout. And
mhm,
so many people drop off because it's like, it's like the opposite of instant gratification. Even when you take a supplement or you do something in functional holistic medicine, you do still see results, maybe a little bit faster. It's not as fast as pharmaceuticals, but this is a little bit different. And so I think that that's why a lot of people fall short, those two variables. But it
mhm.
takes that. That's what I did every day for months. These kinds of thoughts and these kinds of thinking differently and redirecting my thoughts and believing that it would be effective in order for me to get there. But the thoughts themselves, very easy.
Yes, I know that's what I tell some of the clients. I'm like, you literally have to be like Delulu.
Yeah,
You have
100%.
to just believe that it's going to, even though the evidence isn't right in front of you. It's just
Yeah.
like doing the thing and knowing that these are the right steps. But you're right. A lot of people fall off because there's not that immediate
Mhm.
gratification. 'Cause they're like, all right, I've been doing this for a month. And same with like meditation. I've been doing this for a month. I don't see any progress. And I'm like, just stick with it.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so on your social media, you talk about the symptom cycle. Can you explain what exactly that is and how people are stuck in this symptom cycle?
Yeah. So it's okay. The way that the brain works is it likes to make a habit of everything. So if you think about like something you do in the morning, right? Like you wake up, most people, I'm not going to demonize it, right? But let's say you check your phone to like, brush your teeth or whatever you do. You're not consciously thinking of doing that, right? Like that's just a habit And we have a lot of habits. And I think everybody knows that. It's hard to break a habit. They're made subconsciously. Like you're not saying, oh, I just want to like memorize this. They're just made. Very few times are they made consciously. And the brain does that because it wants to free up that cognitive space to learn new things or problem solve. And so it's really good at making habits. Now, what people don't realize is that your brain makes habits of your symptoms. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's not just what you're doing, it's everything that's funneling through your brain. And so when your symptoms become chronic, it's very different than when they're acute, meaning like you have a sore throat, you go whatever, you better in 3 days. That's different. But if it's happening every single day, then the brain is like, I no longer want to have to like reanalyze and interpret the situation every day. It's taking up too much cognitive space. Therefore, this is a habit. And
Mm-hmm.
so then what happens is any, let's say, trigger around you, like let's say you have pain, and every time you sit down or stand up, you feel the pain. So that's a trigger. So your brain will make a habit of anything that is anytime you sit down or stand up, regardless of what's going on in the body, that's going to be a habit. That's going to trigger the response because that's just what now happens automatically. This is
Mm-hmm.
neuroplastic change. So this means that the brain has changed because that's what it does and it's always doing and adapted to your symptoms. And so what people don't realize is that they're trying all these things to heal and they're like, oh, it's not working. You don't actually know if it's working or not because your brain has habituated those symptoms. And so you're in this cycle of like, I have these symptoms and they become that evidence that you're still sick because they are real,
Mm-hmm.
but they're neuroplastic at the same time, meaning we don't actually know. And I'm not saying that, like, hey, there's not an issue. There very well could be. There was at the beginning. Whether or not it's still there, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't say. And we can't say until we address the neuroplastic changes. And so I think this is where it's really hard for people to do on their own because they're in it and they're like, I have this sensation. Like, what do I do when I'm in the situation where I'm in the flare? And that's kind of the bridge to getting to where you want to be. It's like you're in the cycle. And so when you ask like what's the cycle, it's breaking that cycle of like automatic trigger response, trigger response, trigger response, and then using that as evidence to confirm your belief that you're still chronically ill and nothing works for you. And that's the cycle that you mean you could live in your whole life if you don't break the
Mm-hmm.
cycle.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that really hits home with my reflux stuff because yeah, it's just one of those things where you're like, yep, this is just the normal. I guess I just have
Yeah.
to accept it versus diving deeper to figure out the whole thing, the flare, the trigger, the cycle. And I know you talk also about how this is in your nervous system as well. So not only the neuroplasticity, because that can change in the brain, but how does this actually affect your nervous system overall? Because I know we talked about a little bit with mind body connection. So we talked a little bit about the brain, now about the body with the pain or whatever that may be.
Yeah, so your nervous system is unconscious. It's very primitive. It hasn't evolved since just forever, basically. And we share our nervous systems with every like animal on the planet. And so
Mm-hmm.
it really understands two things, safety and survival. It does not understand or interpret our life on outside of that in any way. So every thought consciously or subconsciously that we're having is informing the nervous system and it's categorizing it into safety or survival. Now, when the thought goes into survival, that is to clarify for someone who's maybe not experienced with the nervous system is I'm literally about to get eaten by a bear or killed by a tribe. Like that's what it's thinking, but
Mm-hmm.
even more likely eaten by a bear because like we're sharing this nervous system with like the lizard next door. Like it's really, and you see an animal in nature and it's like National Geographic and like something's, racing towards them and they run away. Like that's what our nervous system is doing every time we have a symptom, every time we get an email. Like so, but
Mm-hmm.
to bring it to chronic illness, I mean, the thoughts we have around our symptoms. So when your symptoms are chronic, you develop a series of thoughts that are associated with your symptoms and the cycle you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Anxiety about the what ifs, and then the situations around the what ifs, the planning around it, the interpretation of the sensation and what it could mean for the rest of the day, your future, the implications of it. So all of these thoughts you're having around that are informing the nervous system on how to behave because your thoughts are materialized neurochemically and
Mhm.
hormonally. They're actually informing the body on a cellular level. And so your nervous system then remains in this, I'm going to get eaten by a bear, essentially. And so what people don't realize is your thoughts are a huge player in this. It's not just
Mhm.
your physical experience. What we have control over is how we respond. If we can control the aspect of what we can control, it is a huge part of what our nervous system is actually listening to on a day-to-day basis. And
Mhm.
it's enough to move the needle forward towards healing. And I think, no one's ever really told that unless you're really niche, that your
Mhm.
thoughts can inform your physiology and it can be enough and strong enough to overcome those chronic symptoms by stopping that cycle. But so it all ties together. But a
Mhm.
huge part of that is how we're actually responding to these neuroplastic changes.
And so with my audience, we kind of talk about how your thoughts shape your habits and your habits become who you identify as. Can you talk a little bit about how identity kind of plays in this whole healing cycle and why we're stuck? Because again, the thoughts, the habits, and the identity all come together. But I would love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, sure. So your identity is, as I like to say, the second highest level of the mind. The first is purpose. And you want to work at the higher levels of the mind. Like you said, you don't, if you're working at the level of your actions and sometimes even your habits, really, if I'm honest, it's really hard. Like, we have the book Atomic Habits, which is, a book
Mhm.
about the smartest people trying to teach you how to change your habits because it's a hard thing to do. Why? Because it's still not the highest level of the mind. Above that, you have beliefs, identity, and purpose. And if you can shift at that level of the subconscious mind, your habits will automatically change, your thoughts will automatically change, your actions will automatically change, and therefore your reality will automatically change. And so you really want to start up with the identity piece, at least like purpose is something that someone else can't give you, right? But I can give you help on the identity piece, and that is high enough level of the mind to move the needle forward in every direction. So identity, if you are saying I am, the famous words I am, the rest of the mind has to follow. So if
Mhm.
you say I am chronically ill, right underneath identity is beliefs. So
Mhm.
your beliefs will be in alignment with the person who is chronically ill. I don't have to say what those beliefs are because I don't know every person, but I can give you some idea. I will have these symptoms for life. I am the exception. This just doesn't work for me. I just need to get
Mhm.
used to this. Okay, so then your beliefs are subconscious. So people will
Mhm.
say, "Oh, no, I don't believe that." Well, you don't really know what you believe. You know, like 1% of what you believe. Like we all have some limiting subconscious beliefs. Like we don't know these beliefs. We think these beliefs are true. So this is how
Mhm.
identity plays into it. Your subconscious mind is highly moral, and so it will accept beliefs as truth. When you tell
Mhm.
someone your belief isn't true, it's just a belief. They're like, no. And you're like,
Mhm.
yeah, 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 it's made up. Guess what? It's made up. And you can choose a different one. They're like, no, 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 yeah. There's like, we don't really even know anything that's true. Just make it up.
Mhm.
It could be. You don't know. And
Yeah.
everyone's walking around believing things that aren't true and they're bound by it because it fits within the confines of their identity. So then from beliefs come habits.
Mhm.
So you then have these habits, these thought habits, these physical habits, these action habits coming from your identity and beliefs. And then you're like, I can't change my habits. They're really hard. I can tell you why you can't change them because until you change your beliefs, at least you will not be able to
Mhm.
change your habits or your thoughts. Forget it. And your actions. Why just try to change your actions? It's impossible. You can't do it for this reason. So it's not discipline. It's the level of the mind that we're talking about. So when I work with clients, we change at the identity and beliefs level.
Mhm.
And yes, there still is a level of discipline required, of course, but we don't even try to change habits. Habits just follow because if you are a healthy person, you're just going to act like a healthy person. You don't need to try to outline what that is. You're just going to do it. And that's how you change and evolve the mind at an identity level.
No, I love that. I'm saying to clients and friends, and I'm like, you have to be it until you become it. And they're like, what are you talking
Yeah. Yeah. Like what? And I mean, that feels even more hard with chronic illness, which is why I'm like sensitive to that. Cause it's like, you talk about clients coming in, they're like, oh, I want to be a millionaire. Okay, be it. I mean, that feels hard. But when you've been chronically ill for 10 years and you're like, okay, now you need to, like even to reach for like, I am healing. They're like, well, how do I do that? And
about?
that's where I'm the bridge because it's like that is hard. That's hard. That's like you said, that's the belief before you see.
Mm-hmm.
And when you've had so much evidence to the contrary, overcoming that, it's not something a lot of people want to do or ever set out to do. And I think I'm lucky to work with like the few people who are willing to like, take the leap of faith and say, well, I've tried everything else. So let's, like you said, be delusional, and see what happens.
Yes, no, I love that. And we also talk about the RAS and how it will find evidence of your beliefs. Like whatever you believe to be true, there will be evidence and it will remember those things because, like what you mentioned before, our subconscious patterns. I know I hear it all the time, I see it all the time. I've done the work myself. I did the week-long retreat with Dr. Joe Dispenza for the meditation, and it's like, yeah, you're only trying to change essentially like 5% of your conscious reality because everything is those subconscious patterns. So, what would you say is one thing that the listeners can start doing today to maybe start to try to rewire those subconscious patterns?
I think awareness is the first step in anything, but especially with this, like I said, because subconscious is inherently below your conscious awareness, people are going to be unaware. Like this is why
Yeah.
people are so confused. Like they're trying to change aspects of their reality and they're like, why can't I change this aspect of my reality? And it's because they're unaware of the patterns that are driving their reality. And so the first thing, even just start with your beliefs. Don't even go to the identity level, but just start to think about like, what do you believe to be true about whatever aspect of your life that you're trying to change? You have to then be really honest with yourself. And again, you're having to remove like the part of you that's like, no, I don't believe that, or I wouldn't do that, or this idea that you're self-sabotaging or it's your fault. It's not really about that because we all have this. So it's not a single person who's self-sabotaging. It's we all have limiting beliefs that drive our behavior that prevent us from getting to where we want to be. And there's no exception to that rule. The only way to get past that is to kind of put the ego aside and be like, all right, fine. In which case, what are these beliefs? And okay, great. Once you're aware of them, what beliefs do you want to have? What reality do you want? I mean, if you want to be a millionaire, right? What does that person believe? Because it's not going to be the same thing as what you believe, or else you would be in that position. So, what is it that that person believes? It's easy to make money, or like, money can come from X, Y, and Z streams.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever, like it's good for the world when I'm wealthy, whatever it is that you want to believe, right? For me, it's obviously with health. And then start collecting evidence to support those beliefs. Your mind is an evidence collecting machine. So
Mm-hmm.
all you have to do is provide it enough evidence and it will change its beliefs. So if you can't find evidence of it in your life, find it outside of you. Find examples of it where other people have done it because now you're proving to your mind that your belief, your limiting one, isn't true. Because if someone else can do it, then it can't be truth. It's only a belief. And so you just have to shatter this idea that that belief is true and start collecting evidence to support your new ones and become obsessed with that. And the people who are doing this and achieving this are obsessed with the beliefs that they want and finding evidence of that until that expands within their reality and their mind and becomes just how it is. And again, these are, it's not about the knowledge with what I'm teaching. It's about the implementation. It's about being consistent. It's about being obsessed with it. It's about, and it's that kind of the part of it that's the hard part. But like anyone can go collect evidence. Like that's not hard. Anyone can put a podcast on and listen to it while they're cleaning or an audiobook,
Mm-hmm.
like you don't have to go to Dr. Joe Dispenza. Like doing that is amazing, but you can listen to his book for like a
Mm-hmm.
free trial and you can get the evidence, whatever you need, it exists with all the free information out there, and you could 100% transform your life just with that completely for free.
Absolutely. If somebody else can do it, then there's your evidence. Like if it's not in your own 3D reality at the moment, it doesn't mean like it's not for you. It's
Yeah.
just because you haven't rewired those beliefs yet. No, I
Yeah.
absolutely love that perspective. And with the women that you're helping, they might be stuck in survival mode or they have this chronic illness. What do you think is their biggest like aha or surprise when they start doing the work? They start to be consistent. I would love to hear some of those like big wins.
I mean, the biggest thing that happens is, and like the catalyst for their healing is when they have one win that shows them that they can actually achieve healing with their mind. It sounds really obvious, but what I mean is like when they start with me, like I said, it's that kind of arduous, like I'm getting up, I'm forcing these thoughts and da da da, and I'm really tapping into it, but like it's not quite in my reality yet. And then about week 3 or 4, they'll come on the call and they'll be like, oh my God, it happened. And it's like, that's their moment, right? Like, it's not like a fell swoop, but it's a win. Whether it's like, they woke up and they didn't have the spiraling anxious thoughts and or like they sat down and they didn't have pain or they didn't pass out that day or whatever. Like, it's one win. It's rarely
Mm-hmm.
ever going to be like, my whole condition is gone. But that one first win is that proof that like they can do it, and it's finally like, yes, I did it. And it's like something awakens, like the true belief then awakens, because up until then they're just like hanging on by my word, like every day being like, yes, it's gonna happen, and they're like, okay, but then they have it inside of them, and that's where everything really expedites. And it's like they have these huge wins, and then they come out and they said, I've reversed my condition. And so it really is just about like sticking with it until you get that evidence internally. And that's why I was saying like it is about, if you have to look outside of you, find it elsewhere in
Mm-hmm.
reality and hold on to the belief that it's just possible. If you can't even get there with yourself, and keep doing it and holding on to it's possible, it's possible, it's possible. The truth is that it is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's all you need to then boom, your body now feels safe enough because it's returning to that thought instead of all the other unhelpful thoughts, and it starts to happen. And so yeah, it's a really great fun job because you get to keep seeing that happen and you're like, yes, amazing.
Yes, it clicked. I know, and I love that it's not instantaneous, like you said,
No.
3 weeks, 4 weeks, just for the first win. And in our society, everybody's like, quick fix. How can I get the win right now? So I love that you reiterate that it's not right away. It does take time. It does take consistency. Like in the gym, you're not going to just go and squat 200 pounds or something. Like you got to slowly build up to that.
100%.
And then, what is one thing that, in your opinion, when women are working on their healing journey, what's something that you see that might be actually keeping them stuck instead of progressing?
Perfectionism.
Mm, yeah.
Quickest, easiest response in the entire world. Changing your brain is not anything to do with being perfect, and it's everything to do with just being consistent. I don't care if it's sloppy. I don't care if you're tired. I don't care if you're doing it brain fogged. Like, it just doesn't matter. Change happens with momentum. And doing, if you can only give me 4% and you give me 4%, that's 100%. That's still moving the needle forward. As soon as you stop the momentum, you stop. You go back to the old pathways. Those who have chronic illness are perfectionists, and with other, trauma responses included. And that is why they fall down and they get back up. They fall down, they get back up over and over again. I'm constantly working on this whole perfectionism, all or nothing thinking, controlling, people pleasing. And yeah, it's huge, huge deterrent.
Yes, I see it all the time with the women that I coach. And especially because with high achievers, we do have a lot of like that perfectionism and we want to do everything and we overdo it. So for the women who are, they don't slow down, they're carrying a lot. How does this personality type actually contribute to the burnout and chronic symptoms? Like, do you see the women in your world are usually like those high achievers, perfectionists?
Everyone.
Wow.
100%. perfection doesn't exist. So when you are a perfectionist, you are never allowing yourself to reach the destination, which means you're always working. So your nervous
Yes.
system is always on. The perfectionism in and of itself is a trauma response. And
Mm.
the subconscious belief is if I do it perfectly, I will be safe. So the interpretation in deeper mind is, oh, because it's not perfect, I am not safe. Therefore, I
Mm.
am never safe because it will never be perfect. So that's the cycle. And 100% of my clients are in that cycle.
Yes. Oh, I'm like, I've just been getting out of this cycle in the last couple of years, which is the reason why I got into this work. Because the same thing, like whether it was for myself or I guess it all is for yourself, but
Yeah.
in my case, it was my dad. Like I wanted to please him. I wanted to show like I'm better and I'm this and I'm that. And so I always felt like I had to like overachieve in order to like get the love, get the affection. And, it wasn't his fault. He was just trying to help me improve and be the best version. But now, like, I see him doing it to my son, and I'm like, no, 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 no,
Mhm. No, no, no,
let's
it's
not.
right just like this. Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%.
Absolutely. So when women come into your world, and for the listeners, I'll link everything. We'll talk a little bit more about how they can connect with you. But if you can speak directly to that high achieving mama who feels anxious, exhausted, doesn't feel like herself anymore, what would you want her to know today?
I think especially for moms, just understanding that your nervous system is the family's nervous system. And when you look at the studies, and I am not an expert in this by any means, but when you look at the studies of how children are raised and the impact it has on their long-term health, happiness, success, it usually comes down to how you are being as a parent as opposed to what you are doing. So the love and connection, the presence and attention, and those are really manifestations of a mother who is regulated, who has the capacity to downregulate when she's feeling anxious, etc. And I think I say that to take the weight off because there's a pressure, especially now, to do it perfectly and to have everything look a certain way with your kids. And you see the Instagram moms who are like, oh, and this is their Pinterest lunch, and this is their
Oh my
like,
God.
I know, I know, I know. And I'm the opposite of that. I am not, I am like, take a Pinterest mom, and then I'm take the opposite, and that's me. And like,
Yeah.
but I think just like to take the weight off a little, like those things look nice. Um, and I'm not saying they're not like I'm sure like there are benefits, but if you're looking at the actual long-term health of your child and the happiness and fulfillment, that's not going to be where it comes from. And
Hmm.
where it is going to come from is your presence. And in
Hmm.
order to be present and to hold space and to demonstrate that, not just tell them, but to demonstrate that, you have to do that work. And that takes the pressure off because then you can say, hey, there's space now to do this, to give myself this time. And I don't actually have to do those things for my children to be happy. They don't actually matter. And like very few things like actually matter outside of what's on Instagram. And so what I'm saying, I think is truly like outside of, like food and bathing and whatever. It's very close to the same indicator for a childhood happiness. And I think it's a lot of pressure. Like I said, when you're a perfectionist, it's a lot of pressure. And that kind of like lifestyle taps into the perfectionism tendencies. And so you almost need permission to just like take a step back and say, like, okay, hold on. This is magnified in my mind, but in reality, it's like not a thing. And where can I cut back? Like if you just look at your schedule and your not even your schedule, your mind and the tabs,
Hmm.
and you say, where can I X out these tabs to allow the space for myself as the most important person in their life and their ability to be happy and regulated and healthy? That it's just about removing more than anything and giving someone permission to do that, I think is so important. And to just unfollow all the moms as well. Like just don't do you know what I mean? Like if they're not like making you feel good about yourself, if anything on there is not making you feel good about yourself, you shouldn't be following it.
Absolutely. I know for myself, I went through social media, and if there's anybody that it just gave me that like ick feeling, or you start to compare and feel like not good enough, I'm like, unfollow, unfollow. unfollow.
Well, I get that all the time because it'll be like on my For You page because I'll say like let's say I'm looking for like an easy dinner recipe for my kids and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, just so many of those like reels. And I'm like I'm a full-time working mom as well, and I'm just like, no, don't let your mind go there and get like, what am I going to spend an hour of my limited like, do my kids want me to spend an hour worrying about like the packed lunch or like the whatever PTA thing, or do they want me to spend an hour playing with them? Like
Yeah.
what do they actually want? They just want me to sit on the ground and play with them and actually have my mind be there and not have the tabs. And that's been my motto. And like I said, I'm not a parenting expert by any means, but I do know the data that shows that a mother's nervous system is the single most important part of this whole mothering thing. And I've taken that very seriously. I'm like so grateful that I learned this before becoming a mom, because while I had no experience with children, I feel like I'm able to really support them in that area. And it's also given me a lot of freedom because I'm just like, I'll be the mom that forgets a water bottle for school or like forgets that it's PE day. But like my kids are really happy and they're really
Yeah.
chill and they never get in trouble. And they're just like very kind and empathetic and all these other things. So I'm like, I just don't even care. I just, I try to remember, but if I don't, I just don't care. And I think I know what I care about. And I hope other moms can give themselves permission and give themselves a break.
Yes.
And just unfollow the accounts.
Yes. Faith, I absolutely love that because I'm the same way. Like, I'm like, what? It was a dress up day? It was this?
Oh God,
Like,
I know.
how did I miss? It was blue day or whatever it
Oh
was.
gosh.
But the teachers will tell me, like, he got his little report card and it's like, your son is such a dream. Like, he's so sweet. If anybody's feeling left out, he's always the first one to like go and talk to them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what a sweetheart. Like,
That's so
it's so
sweet.
true. It's more about being the person versus like the doing. I love
I
that you
think
shared
so.
that.
And I think these days as well, like I still like on a total side note, like I still think like there's so much pressure as well to like constantly be like entertaining your kids and having all these things orchestrated. And I'm just like, what about, and I'm trying to learn this now because I kind of really did feel that pressure. And then I was thinking about when I was growing up, and I was like, my mom would not be like, oh, are you entertained? She'd be like, I have to do something, so you can sit here for 5 hours and like play with pots and pans. And I'd be like, fair enough. Like, and like I never was like, oh, I'm so deprived because I'm like having to play and make things up in my head. I was just like, okay, that's what I'm doing. And so I'm trying really hard to even take the pressure off of that because I'm always thinking, oh, it's Saturday and we have this and then we need to do this and this and this. And I'm like, no, we can just like sit and they can just play and we can just chill and
Mhm.
like bring a little bit of that back too. Because I get carried away in that. And then I have to like, I saw another one of my friends posting about that. And I was like, you're so right. Like, why do we feel that pressure to constantly be entertaining them? Like, that's
Yeah.
not good for brain development. And so for me, that's my kind of like Pinterest mom thing where I always try to have these activities. And now it's been so freeing. I've like canceled Saturday morning swimming and I'm like, we're just going to sit here and you can just play and I'm going to drink my
Yeah.
coffee. And that's what we're doing. And it's so freeing.
Yeah. Yes. I know when we even would travel and people are like, oh, here's a kit of like all these things that your kid can do in the car to keep them busy. And I'm like, can't they just like stare at the window? Like,
Yeah. I'm like,
that's what I did. I would stare out the window, make up stories in my head.
so I said to my kid yesterday, she was like asking for something. I was like, just look outside and see how many leaves you can count. She was like,
Yes.
it's like, keep going. It's fine. There's plenty of trees. Yeah. So I mean, I think we overcomplicate. Well, that's why chronic illness happens in the first place, isn't it? Where we kind of overcomplicate everything, take everything as an emergency, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully, I think our generation is really doing everything to try and fix that and also mitigate like the technology and the stimulation for our children and hopefully kind of give them that gift. So yeah.
Thank you, Faith. I know even with my littles this weekend, we don't like to have like iPad time, even though they're like, well, the neighbors are playing. I'm like, no, they're not. And so then I'll like text the dad, like, hey, let's get them outside. And they literally from like sun up until the street lights are on, they're riding their bikes and their scooters and they're playing outside. And I'm like, okay, this is what it's about. Like,
Mhm.
put the iPads away and kind of have that agreement in the neighborhood, like, hey, no,
Oh
let's like all
yeah.
do this. So all the kids are playing outside. So that has been super helpful is to like have everybody's number and be like, let's all be in agreement that like Saturdays is like no technology day.
Well, do you know what? My kids are still too little for like having, because like my eldest only just went to school. So like I don't
Hmm.
quite have that community yet, but like I definitely want that. And the other thing is in the UK they just passed a law that they have to be 16 to get social media,
Oh,
which I'm like
wow.
so happy about because like I was already like planning like I was like okay, well they're still quite young, but when I get to that point, but yeah, it has to be like a social contract between friends because I can't imagine what that would be like when we get there. But yeah, no, I try I think being bored is good as well. Like you don't have something to do, that's fine, figure it out. The brain has
Yes.
to be bored. You can't be like a dopamine seeking machine because that is
Yeah.
also part of this like stimulation and nervous system dysregulation. And so I'm very conscious of that.
I love hearing another perspective from a mom who's like in the same lane. It's just reassuring. So thank you, Faith, for sharing that. And where can our listeners connect with you, learn more about your work?
So they can follow me on social media at that healing feeling. I'm on Instagram. Yeah, we are posting every day, and just sharing resources and having these conversations. We do have a subconscious mind quiz. So anyone who's like interested in subconscious patterns, because you asked earlier, it's free, and I can send you the link. So basically, like if you're wondering what are my subconscious patterns and how would I address it, we do have a free quiz that you can take. It will send you your patterns, and then we do have a free protocol that comes alongside just for someone who's kind of new to this and is like, where would I start? Like I gave you an example today, but let's say you want like a month-long protocol that's a little bit more comprehensive based off how you answer it. We actually give all of that away for free. So I'll send you the link if anyone like wants like a kind of gentle entry point and they can just try
Yeah.
it and see what kind of changes they could find within the month. Usually, like I said, by week 3 or 4, you do get a win, and I think that's what I want everyone who interacts with me at the very least to have. And like I said, we give it away for free. So yeah, that would be a good place as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that I'm going to do that because I always like to learn and grow and figure out what's next.
Oh, me too, girl. I have to be like, no, we're not learning anything this week. We're good because I'm the same. Like I being type A was what got me to where I was. And I feel like I'm always setting boundaries and forever recovering from the tendency
Yes.
to want to learn more, do more. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, no, we're just gonna stay, we're just gonna chill. And yeah, no one's perfect. It's a constant journey. And like I said, awareness I think is most important. So yeah.
So true. This weekend, I told my husband, I'm like, I'm not doing anything work related. I'm not doing anything. I'm just going to focus on just the family, just like the slow things. And then I'm washing the dishes and I'm listening to like a Jim Rohn podcast. And he's like, what are you doing? I thought you weren't doing it. I was like, I can't just sit here. I know I'm supposed to be bored. I'm supposed to be bored and letting my mind wander, but
Well,
it's
you
hard
know
to
what's
turn
a
it off.
It's a good thing. Okay, I don't know if this is like, if a psychotherapist would agree with me, but I personally think this is a good thing to do. So I'm sure you've tried this, but I will like put on a mindless show. So like I really
Mm,
like a mind-numbing like comedy, like The Office or something like that, that's just like neutral but funny for me, funny, right? And then
yeah.
I will play that in the background. So like my husband took the kids to the gym and they had like a class on Saturday and they were gone for 2 hours and I literally just put the show on so that I wouldn't think. And I just like tidied up and like, but not like arduous cleaning, just like simple things that needed to be done. So I could really like, I know it's gonna sound crazy, but it was like relaxing because it was like
Yeah.
I don't have to think about anything. And that's what I'm saying. It's the tabs.
Yeah.
I usually go do a workout or I'd catch up on work. And I was like, no, I'm just gonna sit here, do a little online shopping, just listen to my funny show, just chill, did a face mask. And I find like when you're someone who has a tendency to fill the time with learning or doing, putting on a funny show, again, a psychotherapist might say, like, no, you need to train yourself to like sit in the silence. And you can do, I get it, it's trending on social media. But again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be that way. Like you can just do
Yeah.
something that you like, that you enjoy, that's funny, that you never get to do. That's a rest.
Yes.
It's a rest for the tabs, you know? So
Yes.
I loved it's like such a treat for me if I get to do something like that. And it does really help the brain. Like just stop.
Same. I'm like, I have a hard time with just like chilling and doing nothing. I'm like, I'm not being productive. What can I do to still be productive, even though I don't have to do anything?
Well, I saw a reel the other day that made me laugh so much. It was a girl on her vacation and she's like filming herself. She's like, am I relaxing enough? Am I relaxing enough to be taking care of this vacation? I need to be relaxing better. Like, oh my gosh, the vacation is halfway through and I haven't relaxed enough. How can I relax twice as hard just to make up for this like a million likes? And I'm like, it's that's what I'm saying. It's a forever journey. And that's why you can't try it. Perfectionism is, oh no, I have to go from where I am now to sitting in silence and being bored. And it's like, no, you can just take a step in another direction and watch a funny show. Or even, you know what?
Yeah.
Go online and online shop for something. People are going to say, well, that's dopamine seeking. Maybe it is, but you're not a shopping addict. You're a
Yeah,
type
yeah,
A
yeah.
personality. Just take one baby step and let that be a win. You don't
Yeah.
have to go from 0 to 100. Just get your nervous system accustomed to being instead of
Mhm.
doing. And then as you do that, it becomes easier and easier and easier. And so I just hope people can take the pressure off from always going 0 to 100 and just do something. Like there's so many of us in the same boat. And even me teaching this, like I do things like that because I don't care about being perfect and I don't care about what like people are saying is like the right way to do it. I care about how I feel and how my nervous systems
Yeah.
feel. And that's it.
Yes. No, I love that. I have to sometimes come back to like just taking a deep breath. I'm like, okay, do we feel safe? Everything's fine. Okay.
We're not going to get eaten by a bear. It's just getting the kids ready for school.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Faith, for joining me today. And I look forward to chatting with you soon.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.